Okay, so today we're looking at trigonometric ratios. So trigonometric means we're going to be looking at triangles, and ratios are just you can refer to it as like a fraction, or it's when you write something. So if we wrote like A over B, that can be a ratio, okay? You don't need to really worry about they might use that word ratio, but we can just remember them as, you can remember them as the trig rules or so on. So when we use these rules, these trigonometric ratios, we're going to see now. Yeah, when we use these rules, we use them on a right-angled triangle. So we're going to see that the right angle will be indicated by that little square in there, or they will tell you that it's a right-angled triangle. Now, so we have to remember those remember there was certain sides of the triangle. So if you remember back when we did Pythagoras, the side that's opposite that right angle, what was that called? Good. So that was the hypotenuse. So you need to write that in. Okay? So even on this other triangle, because it's opposite the 90 degrees, that is the hypotenuse. Okay, now we have to label the other sides. So these rules we're going to do refer to the other sides. Now the other sides they are labelled according to which angle they want you to talk about. So see here, they've labelled that. So they use that little, it's called feeder, that little symbol. That's just a symbol they like to put when they're indicating an angle in triangles. All right, so what you have, when you find that angle, the one they're talking about, so the side that is opposite that gets known as opposite, okay? So that would be called the opposite side in this instant. So in this other triangle over here, because there's the angle they're talking about, this becomes the opposite. Okay, so we might call that one the opposite. Now, then you've got one last side to label, and see how it's next to the one that the angle they've labelled. So next to, in maths, we often use the word adjacent. Okay? Okay, and so this one here, adjacent. I think I spelled adjacent wrong there, sorry. Okay, so now we know we've labelled the triangles. I'm now going to tell you what these rules are. So we are going to be using, and it's a function on our calculator. So we often say sine, I think they're missing a little bit here of the rule. So I'm just going to rub that out. Oh, it's not going to let me. Anyway, all right. Sine the angle, sine's equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse side. So I'm just going to write abbreviated, okay? Now, if you ask for cos, the ratio for cos angle, that ratio is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And the last one, if you ask for tan, the tan ratio of the angle, the tan ratio is opposite over adjacent. Okay, so you would have done these before in Year 9, but just to go over, we can often remember them, so you need to remember these rules, but you've got your reference book anyway, your formula in the test, but just to help you, they often use the word SOHCAHTOA to help you remember the rules, because you can see down here, if you say so for SOHCAHTOA, see how sine, and this is O over H. So can you see they've written that rule? And car, so when you have cos, the first one, A over H, and the last one, tan, toa, is O's written first and adjacent. So SOHCAHTOA is a quick way to remember them. So say you didn't have a formula sheet, you could quickly write that on the top of your page and you'll remember the rules, okay? looking at this, these are questions. It says label the triangle with O, H and A. So we often just refer to the opposite side. We just use the letter O, and the hypotenuse, we're just going to use the letter H, and the adjacent, we'll just use the letter A. So in this one, I suggest you label the hypotenuse first. It's always the easiest because it's never different. It's all... Okay, so as I said, label the hypotenuse because that one never changes. It's always opposite the right angle. So you've got hypotenuse. I like to put a circle over mine as well so I don't get confused that I know I'm just labeling that side. I don't think it's a number or anything. Okay, so we've got the hypotenuse. Then sometimes it is easier to, I find then, to do the opposite side. So I go, all right, there's the angle. So there's my opposite and say this is the angle. That is the side opposite that angle. And then you know, then the last one must be the adjacent. Okay, so I've labelled them in. All right, now it says for the triangle, write the ratio. So the ratio is just when you write the fraction. You know, O over H is like a ratio. So here, they want us to write the ratios for sine, cos and tan of this triangle that's written here. So we should label our triangle up the way we know. So I would call this the hypotenuse, I would call this the opposite, and this one the adjacent. Okay, they've given them little letters and we'll use them in a minute. So first when we go sine, let's write the rule. So if we remember SOHCAHTOA, so sine is equal to the opposite over hypotenuse. So then you go and look at your triangle, and what is in the O space in this example? It is the letter B, and what's in the H space is a little h, yeah? So I'll just write that. And there you've written the sine ratio for this triangle. So the sine ratio is that, okay? Now, if we look at cos ratio, remember if you're looking at the formula, car, so it's adjacent over hypotenuse. So what letter is in the adjacent spot for us? It's a little a, isn't it? And a little h for the hypotenuse, okay? So they might not use those letters like A and H. They might use any letters, or they might use numbers and you just pop them in the spot. Okay, so tan's formula is TOA, which means O over A. So what's in my O spot is a B, and in my adjacent spot is a little a. So that would be the final answer. So you might just want to write in your notes here, they're the ratios. Okay, just so you remember if you get asked the question, what's the ratio? That's them.